everybody. My name is Elise, and welcome to my tea table. Today is Wednesday afternoon, and that means Constitution Study Group. I haven't been here with you for a few weeks now to do one of these, so I figured it is about time we get back to our civically engaged community mindfulness that is Constitution Study Group. Huh, Bitcoin? You want to come say hi? Bitcoin's here early. Bitcoin just finished making a TikTok, so he's feeling really famous and fancy right now. The baby boy. The baby boy Bitcoin. He learned how to make matcha with a cat today. It was pretty cool. Pretty nice. Bitcoin, say hi to everybody. I'm gonna say hi to everybody. Yeah, here comes to my lap. Let's chillax. Let's chillax, boy. All right, so as usual, what I do preparing for Constitution Study Group every week is go to the news, find some relevant news information pertaining to, hey Don, what's up? What's up, Don? Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Been missing you around these parts. Yeah, I go to the news, I find relevant stories or information or topics or themes going on in the world relating to our capacity for politeness. And today I found an article in NPR News, which does tend to be a source of a lot of the articles that we start these conversations with, about critical race theory. And this is something that I've been hearing in discourse online, particularly among Black communities, Black content creators. And so I figured that this would be a good chance for us to do a little dive into the literature, the academic literature around critical race theory, and of course look into what is going on today right now around this. What is CRT? So CRT is critical race theory. That's like the shortened for that. So I just had used that in the titles for today's videos just to make it easier. I don't want to have to type it. I'm lazy sometimes. We're all allowed to be lazy, aren't we? As usual, we are enjoying the vibrant tunes of our good friend Sojourner, Justin Sojourner. He's based here in Las Vegas, Nevada. He's a great friend of TLET, of the channel. Go check him out. He's on TikTok. You can find him on TikTok. But actually, funny enough, his most popular platform that he is constantly updating his info is Facebook. So if you're a Facebook user, go find him. Sojourner. You'll know it. Justin Anderson is his real name. I'll be drinking some tea today. Today I'll be drinking a beautiful floral lap song. The tea blog, or are you talking about the podcast? Are you talking about the podcast that we do on Mondays, Don? If that's so, yeah, we're having a lot of fun with that. That was really special to have Alfredo jump in and join us live on the podcast. Very unexpected. So here's the tea I'll be drinking today. So this is a beautiful black tea from Fujian, China. This is a very traditional style of black tea from China. Now you might have heard of the name Lapsang before. Lapsang Chushang is a very popular flavored tea in the Western tea market. This one is unflavored. The traditional Lapsang is not smoked, actually, even. You can find smoky Lapsang, but it's not typical. So I'm going to start out my Gong Fu tea service by priming all of my wares, getting everything nice and warm. I have freshly boiled water here. Just going to run it through my Gaiwan. Then I'm going to run it through the rest of my teaware. And I'll get brewing. And once we get brewing, and I get my theanine, I get my nootropics, I get my caffeine, I get my good vibes going, then yeah, we'll jump right into learning what's going on in the news. What are lawmakers doing that is threatening our constitutional right? This is Gong Fu Cha. I'm just I'm brewing up some tea before I get going with. Oh, this is going to be a strong one. Before I get going with the Constitution Study Group. But my name is Elise. Welcome to my tea table. I run a a software company, an agriculture supply chain software company out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And I have this channel to of course educate about tea. So you're going to see me talking about tea a lot and serving tea a lot, trying different teas, talking about where they come from, what makes them unique. But additionally, we also talk a lot about culture and about how we can bring more mindfulness to our lives, and consequently more happiness, living the best life we can. So I've got my freshly boiled water here, just pouring it over the dried leaves, so it smells lovely. Nice and malty, really sweet, a little bit chocolatey, but not smoky at all. Usually you think of lapsang. Who was that? James Bond, 007. He was really into lapsang tea. He made it famous, huh, Bitcoin? This is Bitcoin. He's my pooch. He's our office dog. He's our CFO, head of security. Just ultimate little good boy. He's feeling good. He just finished filming a TikTok where a cat was teaching him how to grind and make matcha. It's all pure fun. All right, so I put a lot of leaf on here, so I shouldn't have to steep it for very long. So I'm gonna decant it now, gonna be ready for drinking. Smells really nice, like fruity. Of course, so this is the fruity one. It reminds me of like dates, like that kind of fruit, that like deep, rich fruitiness. Oh, that's so good. So good. I needed that. Okay, so I'm gonna get us to the article. So we'll start with the article first. I did find some academic papers that we can reference just to kind of understand more about what's going on. Oh, I take it back. I did not get this article from NPR News. I got it from a different source, which, I'm not too sure about the, bias of this source, but we'll see. Let's learn, and then we'll see, and we can make our own judgment. That's really important with our channel here, is not just that we are the gatekeepers of information, or some authority or some publication is the gatekeeper of information. We really want to make sure that everybody is empowered to not only access the information and make a decision for themselves if it is the truth or not, if it is, the best action and the best decision for us as people, humanity, community, all those things. So yeah, I'm gonna get this article up. We'll get going. I do welcome comments, questions. I am live here. I'm watching all of the chat. I am streaming across several different channels, so please just be patient if you hear me talking to someone else and you say, "Oh, who's that?" It's your friend. It's your friend. Like, we're all gonna become friends, and we're all gonna get into it. Man, it's Christmas again. Hola, Muddy Boots Johnson. That's a good name. I like that. I like that a lot. All right, so here's the source, American Independent. I'm not too familiar with, this is progressive journalism. That's what they call themselves. I had never read anything from this, but, it's probably progressive because it's definitely having some criticizing Republican far-right lawmakers. But, we're not here to criticize. What we want to do is kind of understand these concepts, because CRT, or critical race theory, is something that we are all going to be hearing about, seeing. It's been around for a long time. It has not been in the, mass discourse, probably just because people didn't really, like the people that knew about it and that it applied to and that were affected. I mean, ultimately we're all affected by it, but the people that are invested in it, don't always have the loudest, strongest voices. And now, Now we're hearing about it, and it's coming from all sides of the political spectrum, which is good, because that just means discourse is going to happen. Oh, well, Muddy Boots. I did not hear about it. I just looked it up. That looks pretty insane, this story. We're not really here to talk about politics. We are here to talk about our capacity for politeness, right? And I'm certainly not saying that what happened in this story has any ounce of politeness to it, but we're not here to talk about specific people. We're here to talk about overarching policies, overarching culture that does affect each of our own individual ability to fully exercise politeness with our neighbors, with our community, and also to experience politeness ourselves. Basically, to have our civil abilities optimized. This article is titled "Far-Right Lawmakers Back Bill That Could Ban Teaching Basic Constitutional History," right? So this right here, this keyword constitutional history, is what got my attention for this article. Reddit, I know this is kind of small. Let me I can zoom it in for y'all so you can see it, you can keep up. I will be reading it, so if you can't read it, don't worry about it. I will be saying it out loud. All right, that should be better for y'all. The far-right wing of the House Republican caucus endorsed a bill on Tuesday that would prohibit any federal funding for teaching about America's racist history. If it were passed as written, the bill could be used to prohibit teaching about the most discriminatory provisions in the nation's founding documents. All right, so we're talking about the Constitution here. In an official statement, the House Freedom Caucus announced that it will oppose any spending bill that does not defund critical race theory-based trainings for federal employees. While critical race theory refers to a specific academic approach to examining the nation's history and structure through the lens of the role racism has played and continues to play, Republicans have adopted the phrase as a catch-all to use in opposing and obstructing any teachings about systemic racism. The group also announced that it has taken an official position in support of the Stop CRT Act, referring to H.R. 3179, which Republican Dan Bishop, Republican from North Carolina, introduced on May 13th. So this discourse, at least within Congress, has been going on for a month now. H.R. 3179 would ban federal funding to any entity that teaches or advances any of 6 concepts that fall under GOP definitions of critical race theory, including the ideas that any race is inherently superior or inferior to any other race, that the U.S. is a fundamentally racist country, that the U.S. Constitution and the Declaration of Independence are fundamentally racist documents, and that any individual by virtue of his or her race is inherently racist or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously. Since its formation in 2015, dozens of the most hardline conservative House Republicans have joined the Freedom Caucus. CRT stands for critical race theory. We are talking about it right now. I am reading an article right now about this topic. Let's learn together. They claim to back open, accountable, and unlimited government, the Constitution and the rule of law, and policies that promote the liberty, safety, and prosperity of all Americans. While no official roster has been published, many of its members have been identified, including its chair, Andy Biggs of Arizona, and its vice chair, Jim Jordan of Ohio. The proposal is co-sponsored by 61 other representatives, all Republicans. While it is unclear how the law could be interpreted, the provision governing the founding documents could effectively bar teaching about 3/5 compromise and other instances of racism in U.S. history. And we will be looking at an academic article as soon as I'm through this one, looking at the intersections of critical race theory with the Constitution, with the actual Constitution and the various amendments that are a part of it. The text of the U.S. Constitution, adopted in 1787 and ratified in 1788, contained a clause saying that congressional seats could be apportioned on the basis of the total of the whole number of free persons and 3/5 of all other persons in each state, which gave greater political power to slaveholding states. So there it is, and that's in the Constitution. That's in the document right there, attaching lesser value to slaves, which the context is a little bit different now, but there's still a lot of roots that were seeded in these words, and not just in these words, but in the overall meta constitution. Remember, we looked at that word last week, meta constitution. So the constitution of the Constitution, the culture of the Constitution, the culture of the founding fathers that wrote this document, which we now, hundreds of years later, are still operating under this exact document as it was originally written hundreds of years ago. Earlier anti-slave language included by Thomas Jefferson in the Declaration of Independence has been deleted before the Declaration was voted on and adopted by the Continental Congress in 1776. It did keep in a clause that called Native Americans the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Another point of discrimination. Spokespeople for Bishop and the Freedom Caucus did not immediately respond to inquiries about whether schools would lose funding if teachers were to teach their students about what is the nation's founding documents. So that's pretty serious. Teachers are being threatened that they can't teach just history alone. Talking about this history doesn't. So it's not political. That's the first thing. It's not political, but the argument that teaching about these things, you can teach about these things, but then kind of glaze over the current status of systemic racism, that will be a challenge. And so, it's understandable why certain parties. I do support LGBTQ. Yes, thank you for stopping by. I support all the good things. I support all the people. I support civility. And that's what today's talk is about. This is a Constitution study group. The Constitution is simply our protocol of civility. And civility is simply our capacity for politeness. And, it seems pretty simple. It seems pretty simple. No politics. We're not talking about politics here. But yeah, we're welcoming of all people. All right, so this is the article that I found, and I've actually pulled up this article in the past before, talking on other subjects related to systemic racism. But let's do a little deeper dive into this. So the title of this article is "Plenary Help," which is like plenary power, the absolute power. And constitutional outcast, federal power, critical race theory, and the Second, Ninth, and 10th Amendments. So this seems promising that, in this document, which was published, when was this published? This is in the Ohio State Law Journal, 1996. All right, so, right? Is it 96? Let me just double check this. Yeah, it is 96. 1996, right? So the concept of critical race theory is at least that old. If not older, it's probably from even more than that. Scholars have been talking about this for a long time now. All right, so this does seem to be a lengthy article at 50 pages or so. So we are not going to read the entire article, but let's just start out with the introduction. Let me see. Yeah, we'll start out and we'll just kind of move where we need to move. The dramatic expansion of federal power since the New Deal has produced profound doctrinal, social, and political changes. It also presents a profound paradox. While expansive federal power has been an engine for advancement of progressive ideals, it also is a threat to liberty those ideals seek to enhance. For American minorities, the paradox is striking. Expanded federal power has yielded the benefits and protections of the civil rights era, but the foundation of that power is a constitutionalism that unbridles collective power and thus invites majoritarian abuses. Interesting. Always have to keep this shit in check. I think that's the moral of the story. I was doing an interview earlier, just right before this, and talking about trust-based transactions, trust-based business, and how important it is and how feasible it is. And it's almost as if a gatekeeper is required for the time, for the interim, for the transition time, just like the Constitution was needed as this new country, this new civilization was establishing itself. But, just as any gatekeeper, like, you've got to keep them in check. And over time, the trust that may have inherently been baked in at the start of that gatekeeping or of that constitutionalism, it needs to evolve and it needs to change with the community in order for the trust to sustain. The danger grows from the perhaps inevitable conflict between rights and power. Harvard's Richard Fallon has explored this tension, arguing that rights and power in modern American constitutionalism are conceptually interdependent. We have no way of thinking about constitutional rights independent of what powers it could be prudent or desirable for governments to have. In an era where substantive boundaries on federal power seem ephemeral at best, this suggests that what we call rights may be primarily fair weather or illusory barriers to the exercise of power. However, on at least one view of it, this may be of little practical significance. From a majoritarian perspective, the shifting boundary between rights and powers and the capacity of power to consume rights may be unproblematic and even attractive. If the exercise of plenary power reflects majority will, and then we might say this exercise renders a balance between rights and powers that best reflects our current problems, ambitions, and fears. Indeed, we might view the alternative of a more formalist structure in which constitutional language imposes, at least until formally changed, solid and frustrating substantive boundaries on power to be foolishly inflexible. But this majoritarian critique masks a core danger that is revealed when the issue is viewed from a minority perspective. All right, now it's going to get juicy. From a minority perspective, the view that conceptually unlimited federal power renders the balance between powers and rights and power that best reflects our current needs is paradoxical at best. Critical race theorists have argued that America's unfailingly majoritarian doctrinal, political, and social frameworks presents a multitude of dangers and problems that are principal barriers to racial reform. From these critiques, we can understand that dissolving power boundaries might coincidentally produce results beneficial to minority interests. And in the case of the 1960s civil rights law, vitally important results but will be predictably yield the balance of rights and powers that minorities would consider prudent, necessary, or attractive. The dilemma and danger for minorities is that plenary power, tethered merely by majoritarian preferences and necessities, leaves minorities simply to gamble on the direction of future swings in the mood of the majority. So everything I just read in this introduction, I know it was kind of long and maybe using some vocabulary that is, beyond our little tea brains. But, oh, that's an interesting take, 666. You think that this is brainwashing? Hey, I welcome your comment on that. I really do. So what I'm reading, and I just finished reading another article here. I'll show it real quick. This article here is about, a new bill what's it called? It's currently being voted on. HR 3179 that will limit federal funding to education institutions that do teach about these things, right? So there's kind of a discourse going on here. I'm just presenting it. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm not doing anything. I am trying to learn and absorb and figure this out. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about this issue, about critical race theory becoming like the trigger button for the Republic, for the GOP, that it shouldn't be taught, right? And so then in this other article here, which is from 1996, right? So this is not some, take that, some journalists put out yesterday in response to this bill. This article here, this peer-reviewed academic law article, is from 1996. And it's not being taught. It's not being taught. And that's what, now, so what was this, though? Just reading here, that when the minorities come in, when their perspective gets introduced, it says the majoritarian critique masks a core danger that is revealed when the issue is viewed from minority perspective. And so in recent times, I don't know, I just have a feeling in recent times, the minority, the voice is becoming more audible. You know what I mean? And I think that that's the perspective coming in and critiquing the majority viewpoint on this thing, and it's making people uncomfortable. And everybody's uncomfortable. No one is comfortable. I don't think anybody is comfortable in this whole situation. So, if you're trying to find comfort in this, like that's long gone, right? But what we do need to find is ways for us to evolve and to get along and to move forward. And much easier said than done, because this is uncomfortable as fuck. All right, I'm going to get to your comments. Let me look at here. Thank you so much for participating in this conversation. I do welcome all comments. Yeah, everybody is uncomfortable. But there's truth. There's truth. I mean, we can say there's truth to all sides. Yes, everybody's feelings are valid. Everybody, even the bad people's feelings are valid. Radicalization. You're right. And always taking things to the extremity. So like I've been saying that for a long time, and only in the past. Bitcoin, you ready to go down and say hi to everybody? You're so cute. You're such a cutie. I love you so much. Radicalization, or the issue is stagnation, not radicalization. It is hard to think for yourself. It is hard. I'll share a story. I want to share a story with y'all that happened last night. I kind of went into a rabbit hole last night, and I think it's kind of relevant to this, of like why it could be easy in trying to process around these civil issues. It could be easy to just give up and become kind of a nihilist about it. So easy, because it's so uncomfortable and it feels so futile, and it feels as if the more you invest in it and the more you validate it and contribute to it, the more separation it's going to create. Totally understand. Totally understand your viewpoint. right, you know what? This OBS, I've just started using the Reddit OBS. It's so hard to read this shit. So I'm gonna go to the URL. I'll read chat from there. I'm happy to see chat so active. Thank you so much for contributing to the conversation. We can blame everyone. Yeah, then the nihilists are part of the problem too, right? It's like, so what do we do? Like, all right, so here's the story that happened. Oh man, thank you. I'm just like going back and reading chat for now. It's great. Thank you so much. It's funny. Yeah. Like just because the activism around this has become so accessible, and I hate to use the word, but it's become kind of a clout building mechanism. The people that are bringing this discourse forward into like the mainstream are acting like this is a brand new thing, and it's like, no, like oh, that's a hot take. Hot take. All ideologies are just bullshit replacements after the death of God anyway. That's a hot take. Thank you for offering it. Something to think about. I mean, is God dead? That's what you're implying. I think a lot of people would have a lot to say about that. Yeah, the extremities. So like, I think of radicalization and it's like the extremities, like even like with the Me Too movement, and you think about sexism and feminism, a lot of times the rhetoric and the discourse is so focused on the black or whites about it. It's like either you're a rapist or not a rapist, and it's like bullshit. Like, we are gonna make our excuse me, my fan just fell down. Wasn't expecting that to happen. All right, fan, stay up. You gotta keep me